Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Northeast Scene Podcast. This is Keith.
And Tommy.
And we've got a very special guest for you today, a good friend of ours, the frontman of hard rock, stoner rock legends, Backwoods Payback, as well as a member of Philadelphia mainstay, All Else Failed, the mayor of Westchester himself, Mr. Mike Cummings.
Woo!
Greetings and salutations.
Mike, how are you doing?
I'm doing all right, man. I'm doing as well as I could be doing right now. So
yeah. So
yeah.
what does your life look like right now with this coronavirus thing going on? Like, are music projects sidelined? Is work sidelined? What's the story?
So I decided that 2020 was going to be the year that I just concentrated on working in music for my life. I left my day job as a hairstylist, and I spent the last part of 2019 on the road with All Else Failed in Europe. And then in January, the second week of January, I left and I went back to Europe with a band called Amigo the Devil. And I do guitar tech work and driving and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Super awesome dude. And so I was in Europe when everything started like really shaking down, and it got to the point where we didn't know if we were going to get back, and so we landed back the second week of March, and we started the U.S. leg of that tour, and by 6 days into it, it was scrapped, and I came home, and I've been home ever since. So
Wow.
I was supposed to be on the road with that tour through April. And then I had a solo tour booked for May that got scrapped. And then I had two more tours working with Amigo the Devil through June and July, and both of those I think are done. Obviously,
Yeah.
So my life is kind of like in one giant holding pattern right now.
Right. So how are you getting by? Like, do you have a lot of savings? Is there odd jobs? Is there other work you can pick up? Or
So I thankfully was able to secure unemployment.
oh, good.
Nice.
Yeah, and then like I live very, very, very frugally, so I don't really spend any money. My wife Jess, she is still able to work her job from home, so we're kind of like, getting by with that. But yeah, it's a lot, man. It's a lot of big question marks everywhere.
My life hasn't changed a whole lot as a result of this thing. I mostly work from home.
Mm-hmm.
Most of the things I enjoy doing take place in my home. So I would just go out to get a dose of people,
Right,
to stay
right.
connected and spiritually fulfilled and all that stuff, and then come back. But I still have a job right now, so that's good. Tommy and I can still do this podcast remote, so that's good. But it is really, I mean, seeing bands live is one of my favorite things, and
Same.
there were so many good shows happening leading right up to when this thing was happening, and those have all been canceled or postponed. And a couple guests ago, Chris Hornbrook was saying maybe things wouldn't get started till 2021 again, and that is a scary thought. But
I'm hearing the same exact thing, like spring of 2021.
Wow.
As far as like actual venue operations, like that's wild, man. I have so many friends that just, I dedicated like my life to this, to music and to playing and to driving and just being around it. And I have so many friends that are touring musicians, and that's how they make their lives, and people that run clubs and run venues and bartenders, and the entire community is
it's devastating for a lot of people. And it's just so hard to hear, because like when you know that just 2 months ago, like it was not uncommon to be like, oh, let's go out and get a drink, or let's go to a restaurant. Like the things that you take for, or like that thing you took for granted, just in an instant you realize, wow, this is just falling apart. However, I've been hearing stuff opening up, and I'm like, like somebody posted something. I don't remember who it was. They were upset because it was a friend of ours, Jay, that runs a tattoo place in Southampton,
Mhm.
and he was saying like, "Hey, I'm kind of pissed," and I like his post was essentially saying like, "Hey, they're opening up the Wildwood Boardwalk for Memorial Day," and he's
Oh
like,
God.
but you're gonna let fucking, thousands of people crowd around fucking shitty t-shirt shops and, pizza places, but you're not gonna let me open a sterile environment where literally we have multiple autoclaves. I control who comes in and out, when they come in and out, but you're gonna let a bunch of idiots go out and get drunk and fucking walk around up on the, boardwalk. Like
Right.
I mean, his point's valid, but at the same time, it's like, you know, where do you draw the line with when you let people back in? Okay, so what opens first? How do they open? I heard there's like a color coded kind of thing. They're saying like there's a yellow band of things that are going to be allowed to open at first.
Right.
And that's going to be things that are kind of like that medium kind of like, these are not totally essential. However, we're making the exception. I honestly just don't understand how it's working.
I, I don't think it's possible to just say, uh, okay, we're going to open this portion of society, but we're counting on you to maintain it and to be, go about it smartly, because
Yeah.
as is evident, we're not capable of that.
No.
Yeah. Oh no. Now, my wife just came back from the supermarket, and I texted Keith, and he was like, "Yo, let's get on at like 12:30. We'll do a quick test." And I was like, "Okay, cool." The line for the actual checkout goes all the way across the front of the store and down. Usually the last aisle is like that refrigerated
Yeah.
/ freezer aisle. She was all the way down that aisle, like 3/4 of a way down that aisle. And she goes, they have an employee walking up and down that said basically from this point on, kind of like at the amusement parks, like where they
Mhm.
say like, hey, from this point on, your wait's going to be about 45 minutes.
Damn.
It's
Yeah.
ridiculous. I walked to Walgreens the other day and I saw the line out the door and like 6 feet between everybody. I just turned right back around. I was like, nope. I don't like to wait like that. It's not my thing.
I've left the house 3 times since March. I think 16th I got home.
Really?
Yeah. So,
Wow.
so so the first time that I left, I went to the trash dump because you're stuck at home, so you're like, let's clean everything.
Yeah.
So I like loaded the van full of stuff, and I went to the dump, and that, I mean, that wasn't until the towards the end of April. And then the second time that I left, I dropped off a bunch of packages at the post office, but I did it at like 1 in the morning because I thought
Oh
like,
yeah.
I won't see anybody, it'll be good. And
Yeah.
then just last week, I rode my bike to Pat's house and
Oh
just
yes.
and stood in the road and was like, and just waved at him. That was just to say like, hey,
That's
I'm
beautiful.
alive.
But even that bit of connection, like it just
Oh,
really
it
replenishes you.
most definitely. Because
Yeah.
I know like the Zoom thing is real big, but I don't
Yeah.
know. I gotta see my people. I gotta see them with my eyes. you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah, I'm doing a little bit of Zoom stuff, and it's it keeps me in check, but it's just not the same. It's not the same.
Mm-mm.
No, and it's like, so I work at a school and they try to do like these large scale meetings. I don't know, Keith, have you been on a meeting with like more than 30 people on it?
Oh yeah, over 100.
So
Oh,
when I do it, with like coworkers, it's really, it's incredibly difficult because like, it's literally starting out with, okay, guys, make sure you're on mute. Double
Yeah,
check you're on mute.
yeah,
Okay, somebody is fucking not on mute. Can somebody? I can hear someone's television. Like it literally. Whereas I have in the morning, I teach math. I have 80 to 90 kids on a Google class, like in Google Classroom. Log into a Google Meet session. As soon as they get on, the kids know to mute their microphones. Like they get into that mode of like, this is how class runs. And the
mhm.
faster we get done and or the faster we follow directions and listen to what he has to say, the faster we get the hell out of here. Like, but for some reason, adults are so hard headed with shit. Like I,
yeah.
I, I literally, I had to post something the other day, like, about like in my classroom And the kids' responses were so like on point, and like I was like, okay, we're just done. I'm not going to even address it anymore. Thank you so much. Whereas I saw somebody post something on Facebook about meeting etiquette for Zoom and like Google Meets and all this stuff. And my first thing was like I immediately thought, I can't stand you. If you fucking start a sentence with, I don't know if this has already been addressed. It's like, fucking pay attention in the meeting. You
Yeah.
realize that like our entire day is focused around going to these things with a singular, like something that we have to get accomplished. And you're not paying attention. You're doing your nails, you're fucking around. And like when it comes to it, we just look at it and go, why didn't you say like, oh, I don't know if this was already addressed. Well, fucking listen. You would have heard that. We wouldn't have to fucking spend time indulging whatever horse shit you now have to fucking talk about. Like, just pay attention the first time. We won't have to fucking do this. But it's so, I feel like adults are so hard-headed with this because they go like, well, I know better or I understand this more. Whereas like the 12-year-olds I deal with on a daily basis are like, oh yeah, Mr. Doherty, I got this. Oh shit. Like, God damn it. Like, how are they smarter than you?
I used to run into the problem of, and it wasn't Zoom meetings, it was like in-person meetings of adults. It's so funny. It's really good adults. Well, we're all adults, yeah, but there's like a different kind of adult,
Like
like
actual adults,
yeah,
pretend
yeah,
adults.
yeah. But like they felt like because they were there, they had to be heard, and it didn't matter if they had anything to say or not. They just wanted to make sure that they said something.
Oh
So
yeah.
so the meetings would last like 2 hours. They could have been done in 25 minutes, but every fucking person has to be like, oh, well, I want to say something about.
Yeah.
Half the time
And
they're just repeating the same thing over and over and over again, but that since they are there, they have to be heard.
working in a corporate environment, I see that a lot. Like someone needs to say something just to be heard because they feel like they have to for some reason, or you'll hear like I'll talk to somebody about something and I'll they'll say their thing, I'll say my thing, and then it should be done, right? But then
Yeah.
they say the same thing again, like they're going over it again. I'm like, I know, we just talked about this, like done. And people always say to me like, oh, you're quiet, and I'm just like, no, I'm just not spewing bullshit all the time. Like I talk when I need to, like
Yep.
keep it simple. So, Mike.
Speaking of talking when I need to.
Yeah.
So, Mike, I've known you for quite a while now. I think
Yeah.
over a decade. But
Yeah.
I don't know a lot about your history. So I want to get into some of that. Where were you born? Where did you grow up?
I was born in Westchester.
Really?
Yeah, I was
You-
born in
You're
Westchester.
you're a Westchester native?
I am,
I
and
didn't know that.
yep. And then I grew up uh, like 5 miles outside of Westchester in a town called Downingtown.
Ah,
Um, yeah, and that's I bounced around for a little while. I was going to live with my family out in Southern California. So I would go back and forth between Yucca Valley and Joshua Tree and Downingtown for a bit.
mm-hmm.
But I mean, essentially, man, born and raised Westchester and Downingtown.
So now I thought you had lived out in Southern California, so that's why I asked. So your
Yep.
family's there, and you would just visit?
Yeah, yeah. So I would go. My mom is from there,
Okay.
so she would go back, and I would go back, and then she would come back east, and I would stay out there for a little while. And you know, I always kind of felt more at home out there. I think just like temperature wise and landscape wise,
Yeah.
but I my whole life is out here, it's east. So
Oh yeah.
I was
Same.
always going to come east.
Yeah, same. That's why this thing is called the Northeast scene
That's right.
because the Northeast is the best. I'm
It
sorry,
is. It
it's
is.
just that's just my opinion. Well, what kind of kid were you growing up? Were you like a popular jock or a AV club kid or what? What?
No, I was just I was I wasn't super popular. I definitely wasn't a jock. I wasn't into techie stuff. I grew up. I'm older than I'm Pat's age, so I'm
Yeah,
40. I'm 42. So like there wasn't really anything to identify yourself with except like, do you play sports? No. Okay.
Yeah, and
Do
that
you play
was
video games? Not really. All right. So,
that was such a thing in my grade school. Like sports. Like you had to be into sports, you had to
oh
know
yeah,
about sports, you had to wear sports clothing or you were like a loser. I remember being in 6th grade. Now in 6th grade you're 12. I remember being in 6th grade, 12 years old, being tortured by my classmates because I played video games and read comic books. Now that seems insane to me. Like isn't that
yeah,
what a 12-year-old is supposed to do?
yeah, totally.
Yeah. Yeah.
I went through a phase where I would go, and this kind of like plays into my always feeling more at home in California. I would go to California and I would get my shoes, or I skateboarded a lot out there, and
Mhm.
I would like get my gear. I would get most of my clothes came from out there,
Mhm.
and then I would come home and I would come back to Downingtown and I would start school, and people would be like, "Your shoes are whack. Like, what is that? Why do you have airwalk? What is airwalk? I don't even know what that is. What is vision? That's stupid."
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Then, but then, so that would be like September. By April of that year, all those kids that were making fun of me for having these weird clothes were wearing those weird clothes because that wave had like made its way to the East Coast. And then it was
Oh
always
yeah.
it was conveniently forgotten that like I had I was on that like
Yeah.
6 months before.
Typical. It's so
So
typical.
so if you were growing up in Westchester around that time,
Uh-huh.
are I was going to say that is this the rote question of like, oh, did you guys know Bam
Yeah,
or Joe France or I'm trying to think of other people like
or
Brandon,
Brandon, and yeah,
Deco, and all those guys.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So we, yeah, we, everybody knew everybody. Everybody knows everybody.
Yeah.
It's funny. Like it's weird to see. I remember like when the Jackass thing really broke on MTV, and it would be like Westchester, and you're like, man, that's Anthony's parking lot. Like what? What? So,
Yeah.
like that's on cable? Okay, cool.
Yeah. It was funny to see them around when we were playing in a band together. Like we'd be at the Node and people would come in or they'd like show up to the softball game. It's like, oh, hey, I know
Yeah,
that guy.
yeah. That was it. But well, I mean, when you live here, and it's not. They're just your buds.
Exactly.
There's
And it was I vividly remember the episode of MTV Cribs where they like went to all those guys' houses and they were just like they were just normal basement apartments in
oh, dude, right,
Westchester or like
Ryan. So Ryan Dunn, he was like my my best friend, and his when his episode aired, we all watched it, and it was like I'm so happy that like it wasn't blown up into anything. It's like, no, you're actually crashing like in the basement of 22. Like you don't even have a bedroom at 22. It's just like your shit's in the basement. It was the
it's so
best.
good. It's so good. So let's trace your musical trajectory, Mike.
Okay.
Now myself, I've always been a music fan. Whether it like when I was young, it would be whatever was on the radio, hip hop, R&B, software. I just liked everything.
Yeah.
And then grunge changed things for me. That's when I really got into music. And then it was like a touch of new metal, hardcore, post rock, emo, and still a lot of hip hop. So
Mhm.
I've settled on those. Like what give us your trajectory and what you listen to mostly now.
So I think my mom always loves music. She's
Yeah.
there's always music in my mom's house, and so when I was growing up, it was her records. So Neil Young's Harvest was
Wow. Great one.
always on rotation.
Yeah.
Uh, trying to think what else. She also got into like Duran Duran
Hmm.
and like Depeche Mode and stuff, which I look back now and I'm like, man, my mom was kind of like in it.
Yeah.
Like, so that I think that's where a lot of it came from for me.
Yeah.
Um, and then a lot of country music, a lot of like Waylon Jennings, Kenny Rogers, Merle Haggard, Chris Christopherson, again, like from her record collection. But the grunge thing is like where it really took off for me. Same. that like,
Yeah.
oh man, I identify with this now. It's not just like I hear it and I like it. It's like, no, I feel that.
Yeah.
That's what I feel. Um, and then from there, it was like, it's funny. I had friends in junior high that had older brothers and sisters, and they were super into like the Misfits, Sam Hain, Slayer, like super like heavier stuff. So we would go to friends' houses and listen to their older siblings' tapes, and that kind of got me into like the more of like the punk rock, veering into hardcore.
Hmm.
Um, and then from there, just as everybody, it's like you get your first Black Flag tape, and it's like, yep,
Yeah,
this is it. This is it. Kick,
Yeah.
kick down the doors. Let's go.
So what do you listen to mostly now? I'm curious. Like for me, I'm all over the place. I listen to Juice World a lot. I listen to there's this Icelandic band VAR I've been listening to a lot.
Okay.
Still a lot of post rock, still a lot of hardcore, Sanction, Vane. I love all that like slightly new metal tinged like new hardcore that's coming
Mhm.
out. When it's done right, it's really good. Like where are you at?
So I'm still giant Neil Young fan. That's like the one thing that carried through for everything. So I'll listen to some Neil Young record just about every day. And I think especially because the dude has such a catalog that for whatever mood you're in,
Yeah.
like he's got synth records. So
Really?
yeah.
I didn't know that. Holy
Yeah.
shit!
Wow.
Really?
He's got like weird Devo sounding stuff. He's got just acoustic stuff. He's got like super heavy, like Sleeps with Angels, grungy, dirgy kind of sounding stuff. So I listen to that. That's probably like my mainstay. I still listen to a lot of country. Coulter Wall, I love. Code Orange is like probably in my top five of everything that they do. I'm blown away by it. From
Yeah.
from the first EP that I heard up until the brand new record. It's like, man, I'm so happy that like they grow and build upon their previous records.
Yeah, I think they're kind of leading the charge of that new hardcore sound. Like
Totally.
it's like that industrial produced like slightly new metal tinged like I dig it. I dig it.
Same.
Yeah.
I really like the Vane record that came out, I guess like
Yeah.
last year.
Yeah.
That was super cool. Um
They're my favorite newer hardcore band. And they have a side project band that's like very 90s alt called Fleshwater.
okay.
And
Oh yeah. Oh my
the,
god, that is so good.
it's so good. You got to check it out. And yeah, they're both of those bands are going to have new LPs this year. They said so. Those are probably my two most anticipated records of
Cool.
coming up. I can't wait for those. So what? How did you get into playing music? Did you start out on guitar?
I did, and I started out on bass.
Okay,
Um,
same.
and did you really?
Yeah,
Whoa, I didn't
yeah,
know that.
yeah. In fact, I'm jumping ahead a little bit here, but we played a show together a long time ago, back in like 2005 or six. It was Backwoods Payback and my first band Paper Tiger, where I was on bass.
Oh, I
And
was at that. Was that the
yeah,
diner? Was it at the diner?
no, it was in like Malvern or somewhere weird. It was like this outdoor backyard stage or
No,
something.
that I was.
Yeah.
I was not there for that.
Yeah. And I remember your drummer like broke a bass pedal and and are you laughing because I corrected the remember?
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. Finish your story, and then we'll go back to the member
Yeah.
part.
I realized that I say member, so I always have to like correct myself because I'll be
I
like
never remember.
remember
Yep.
when you
Remember.
yeah.
Yeah, I sent it. I sent a text to Keith this morning, and we were talking about something, and I said something to the effect of, "How did you start every story? Every story starts with, yo, remember that time the dude?"
And I'm so self-conscious. I have to like be like, remember that time, like. Yeah. So yeah, Backwoods Payback played, and I remember the drummer broke the bass pedal, and our drummer had a double bass pedal, and I was always like really sympathetic to the those type of situations. So I ran and I was like, "Yo, let this guy use your pedal," and we played together. So that was
Whoa.
that was like years before we started playing in a band together.
So man, the circles are just smaller and smaller and smaller, man.
It's crazy, dude.
You know?
It's crazy. So you started out on bass.
I started out on bass, and I took 2 lessons, and I hated it.
Yeah.
And I told my mom, like, I don't want to take lessons anymore. And she was like, all right, I thought you wanted to play. I was like, no, I do. So I just taught myself, and
Yeah.
like I had my own bootleg version of tablature, and I would like watch VHS videos of bands that I liked and like pause it and like look at where their hands were, and then
Yeah.
just kind of like, oh, okay, that sounds like that part. All right, cool. And then I played bass for like 3 or 4 years, and I wanted to write songs, and I couldn't figure out. I didn't think that I could write songs on the
Mm-hmm.
bass and sing, so I traded, and I was like king trash picker too. So like I would try, I would go around and just like pull stuff out of the trash on trash nights, and like crazy stuff, like instruments and amps and a drum set. I didn't know how to play the drums, but I found drums on the side of the road, and I was like, well, got to bring these home. So I had accumulated like 4 bass guitars, and I traded one of them to another kid that went to the high school for an electric guitar.
Mm-hmm.
And I was excited because it looked like the guitar that Paige Hamilton from Helmet played. It
Ooh.
Oh
wasn't,
yeah.
but I just liked the shape of it. And I was like, yeah, that's the one I want to play.
Yeah.
And so then I just kind of taught myself how to play that, and was lucky enough to have friends that played, and they would show me a couple things here and there, and I
Uh, that's
didn't.
awesome. That's like exactly how that was like my exact trajectory too. Once I was started on bass, I really liked the bass sound on Endeavor's constructive semantics. So
Mhm.
I looked in the insert and I saw the guy was playing a Fender bass, so I was like, all right, that's what I'll get. And
Isn't that
and
funny? That's what you do. That you just you find a picture or something. You're like, well, I like that, and then you get older, and you're like, oh, it didn't matter what they were playing. Like it was
yeah.
them making that sound.
Yeah.
But in your mind,
Yeah.
you're like, well, if Greg Ginn has a clear guitar, then I should have a clear guitar, and I'll
Yeah.
sound like Greg Ginn.
That's
I can.
exactly what you do.
So I have like I have like an, so this is so like embarrassing, but like when I was, I think 16 or 17, I saved up a bunch of money and I bought an Ibanez Prestige, like saber body, antique violin. It's like the most as my like, I don't even know like what band you would like Unearth. If you saw Unearth and you were like, what kind of guitars they play, you'd be like, that fucking guitar. I don't know why I chose it, but in my head, every time I go to play guitar, I'm like, oh, you know what? I really want to play something that sounds like kind of like shoegazy kind of stuff. And I'm like, well, I have the wrong guitar for that. I should really be playing like a Telecaster. Like,
Yeah.
like my immediate thought is like, well, just go out and spend $1,200. Like, you
Yeah,
should just go do that now. What the fuck?
and then pick it up every time and be like, why don't you sound the way I want you to sound?
Yeah, exactly. Blame it on that. It's like I used to do it all the time with skateboarding. Like I would like see something new in skateboarding, like new shoes or new wheels or like I remember there was a brand of trucks that came out for a while called Tensor, and they
Mhm.
had this like sliding extra piece that kind of like helped with like nose slides and tail slides, and I was like, oh, I have to get those because then I'll fucking be amazing at backside tail slides. This is gonna be
Right.
fucking awesome. I got them, and I was like, I fucking still suck at these. What is happening right now? Like, this is terrible. Like, why can't I fucking do this trick? Like, fucking saw Tom Penny do this. God damn it! Why is this not working?
So yeah, I started on bass. And how did you actually learn guitar? Now I wasn't going to do it because I was like too many strings, too hard. But then in one of my classes, this kid showed me how to read basic guitar tablature, and I was
Okay.
like, oh, that's easy. So that's kind of how I transitioned into guitar. How did you do it?
Almost the same exact thing.
Yeah.
It seemed like an insurmountable task to because I would see people play and be like, what, their hands are in these weird shapes, and well, I don't even understand. And then somebody was like, no, look, here's a power chord. Oh,
Yeah.
okay. So you could just do it. Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
Cool.
So, what was the first band you were in? Now, there was a band that you were vocalist for, right before
Yeah.
Backwoods.
Yeah. So that was Last Place.
Mm-hmm.
And that was super like real VOD. It was fun. It was cool. It was heavy. It was like chaotic-y and but I just sang and I didn't just sing, but I sang in that because I wasn't comfortable um playing, you know.
Yeah.
I didn't have any confidence in myself doing that. And I would write songs and show and be like, "Hey, what if we did this song?" And those guys were such amazing or are such amazing musicians that I'm sure they were like, all right, here's
Yeah.
let's play Mike's song. It's like two notes, just go back and forth. But in my head, I was like, yeah, there it is. So that I was in that band for like 5 years, 5 or 6 years, and
Mm-hmm.
put out records and toured, and uh, those guys kind of went on and into different phases of life. And towards the end of that band is when I started really thinking like, well, I want to have my own thing because I'm really into, like Black Sabbath and Black Flag and Down and I Hate God and Crowbar and like especially a lot of that like New Orleans
Like
sludge.
sludgy. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah, acid
Yeah.
bath. And so I was really into that, and those guys weren't really into that, and they were kind of going more in the direction of like King Crimson and like later Dillinger Escape Plan, like real tech, real intense stuff. And
Mm-hmm.
so while that band was kind of like winding down, I started demoing and writing my songs, and that became Backwoods Payback.
Nice. So,
Yeah,
how did it go from you're just demoing songs to full band?
I did a demo. I played everything on it, and I sang, played the drums, played the bass, played the guitar, sang, and then I was not really in a band, but I was like driving people sometimes. And even back then it was like, well, I have a van, so I'll I'll take your band to that place. And so I was going to shows and I just dubbed the demo tape and started leaving them around places.
Mm-hmm.
And somebody was like, "Hey, do you want to play?" And I was like, "Yeah, I don't have a band. I should probably like find some people to play." And so I asked a friend of mine that played drums to play drums. Couldn't find a bass player, so we didn't have a bass player. And then I even at that point I still wasn't comfortable like singing and playing the guitar. So I
Mm-hmm.
had another friend sing, and
Really?
I just
Wow.
I just played the guitar. And so
Wow.
we played for probably like 6 months like that. And it was kind of it had gotten to the point where we couldn't really do much else,
Mm-hmm.
just as that lineup. And a friend of mine, um, his name's Rylan. He plays the guitar too, but he wasn't in a band. But he would like write cool riffs, and then I would say like, "Hey, can I use that riff?" Yeah. And so eventually, after that, I was like, "Why don't you just join the band, and then we'll have two guitar players. We don't
Yeah.
have we don't have a bass player, but we'll have two guitar players."
Mm.
So he did that, and then still couldn't find a bass player. And Jess, my wife, was like, "Yo, I'll play the bass." I was
Yeah.
like, "You don't know?" I was like, "You don't know how to play the bass?" She was like, "I don't know. I'll figure it out." So she did. Like the story of like the most driven person in the world was like, "Yo, I like that band. I'll be the bass player. Buy me a bass." So we found a bass, and that was it, man.
That's amazing, and I love hearing those stories because I wish I would have had that drive. You know what I mean? Because
Yeah.
I wanted to be in bands so much when I was young, but with bands or anything else, I guess I just was always sitting back waiting for things to happen. And just hearing you taking the initiative to like record the demo yourself and get out there and network and drop the demo around and find the people to be in the band, and then like you don't even have the whole band, but you're still out there doing it, is just awesome.
I mean, it, I owe it all to punk rock and hardcore. Just like
Yeah.
figure it out. You want to do it, do it. Nobody's going to do it for you. So
Exactly. And that's the lesson I've learned recently with my own musical pursuits and everything else. You can't sit around and wait for the perfect situation because it's never going to come. And
No,
you're never going to know everything, so you just have to fucking do it. You just have to start doing it and build on it.
when we would go on tour, I mean, even still, we go on tour, and you always run into somebody. It's like their band is really good. Like you're playing in Des Moines, Iowa. You're playing with this band that's like blowing you away, and you think like, man, why doesn't this band like come to Pennsylvania, go on tour, put a record out,
Yeah.
and inevitably somebody goes, I wish, like, oh man, I wish we could tour. Like, but you can. You just
Yeah.
have to do it.
Yeah,
Like,
because like no one's unless
no
you're
one,
Justin Bieber,
right?
no one's gonna knock on your door and say, "Hey, we need you to get out on this tour
Yeah,
now." Like you just have to do it.
it's wild that like in 2020, people still have that idea that like it's not attainable, that they can't do that.
Yeah,
Fucking do it. You just got to do it. You got to say like, I'm not gonna have I'm not gonna make a lot of money, but I'm gonna be happy. I'm
yeah,
not I'm not gonna drive a new car, but I'm gonna tour. I'm not gonna, it's all about like balances. I'm a firm believer in it, man. You can do it. You just got to do it. That's,
exactly, exactly. I love that. So, all right. So, Backwoods Payback is together.
Mhm.
We've got a full lineup, right?
Full lineup. We just start touring. Like, hey, man, let's take 2 weeks and see how big this circle we can make. And everybody was on board, and so we would do it. And we'd play to one person, we'd play to nobody, we'd play to 20 people,
Mm-hmm.
but then we'd come home and then say like, hey, all right, in like 3 months, let's do that again, and maybe we can make the circle bigger. And so
Yeah,
it just kept doing that until we were national, I guess, until we were just playing. And we're not playing in front of thousands of people, but we're playing, and like we're going where we want to go.
yeah.
Uh,
You're playing good shows. You're playing good venues.
yeah,
You're still touring all over the country. I mean, that's what it's all about. That's it.
totally.
So let's talk about. So when did you put out your first record? How did we get to the first record?
The first record uh, was the first like full length was 2007.
And that was the self-titled, right?
That was the self-titled, yeah.
Yeah.
So that was we played with a band called Earth Ride
Mm-hmm.
from Maryland, and became friends with them. And I loved their record. And I asked, where they had made it, and they said, "Oh, this guy Chris in Maryland made it," or we went and recorded. And so I looked into him, and he seemed like an unattainable goal. Like the dude made like St. Vitus records and Melvin's records, and the Obsessed and Pentagram, and like all these bands that we love. And I was like, man, there's no way I could do that. And then Pale Divine, they went and they recorded with him. And I think like they had reached out to him, or like their label had reached out to him. And so I ran into this guy Greg from Pale Divine, and I was like, man, how was it like recording with him? It's like, it was amazing. You should do that. Here's his phone number. It's like,
Wow.
oh, okay. So it took a couple days, and then I got up the nerve and I called him and talked to him, and he was very just like, sure, uh, okay,
That's
oh,
great.
sounds good, you know.
Yeah, that's another lesson I've learned, especially with this podcast. Like all you have to do is ask, and people will be
Yeah,
and that was such a foreign concept to me.
It was. There's times where Keith and I will like be exchanging texts or like we'll talk and stuff like that, and he'll be like, "Can you fucking believe people help us out?" And I'm like, it's kind of unreal sometimes because you really do think this entire thing is going to be like an uphill battle because I think Keith has explained this before, but this literally started as multiple conversations between Keith and I where we would be like, oh, we want to do this, we want to do that. And we always thought it was just going to be like, oh, we'll just have some of our friends on and talk about, just talk shit. And
yeah,
then, like, within like 3 or 4 episodes, we had people being like, hey, we got the guy from Poison the Well. We're like, who? Are you fucking out of your mind? Like, are you fucking real for real? Like, really? Like, yeah, he's gonna talk to us from California. Like, holy shit, really thought this was just going to be a bunch of our friends talking shit in a fucking hotel room that we got. Like, you know,
Yeah.
like,
It's wild when like you just ask. It's
Yeah.
cool.
All you have to do, it just has to be the right timing, you know, and
Yeah.
and people will say yes. It's they're waiting. Like I remember reading a story about Mineral, who's one of my favorite bands,
Mhm.
reuniting, and they said, you know, they said just they would have done it sooner, but no one ever asked them. Like one day, Jimmy Eat World randomly asked them, like, "Hey, like, do you want to reunite to play this show?" and or something like that, and they were like, "Yeah." Like I'm like, no one
Sounds
asked
good.
fucking Mineral. What? I would have asked them. So, oh, how did you meet? How did you meet Pat and crew?
So
And
Pat and crew.
folks, I'm referencing Pat Shannon, Northeast Scene guest, and we were all in a band together. So that's where I'm getting to.
So I got the Hate to Say It CD
Mm-hmm.
from a friend that got it at Lollapalooza 1993.
Wow. Oh, and Hate to Say It is the
Hate
pre
to Say
All
It
Else
is
Failed
pre
band.
All Else Failed.
Yeah.
So as the story goes, Pat went to Lollapalooza '93 and I guess was just handing them out.
Yeah.
And a friend of mine got it, and then I heard it, and I was like, "This is awesome!" We became obsessed with Hate to Say It, and we went and saw them in in Phoenixville at the Phoenixville High School. They had like a benefit show, and Hate to Say It was playing.
Mm-hmm.
And so I went, and I didn't know like where the show was in the school, and this guy walks up to me and he's like, "Hey, um, do you want to come inside and see my band?" And I was like, "Sure. What band are you in?" And he went, "I'm in a band called Hate to Say It." And I was like, "Whoa, you're the band that I'm here to see." And that guy was Luke. So I
Ah.
met Luke first.
Yeah.
And so we went inside and saw them play, and what they were playing was completely different than the CD. It had like gone to the next level. So they were playing based on this tape that they had called Defenseless,
Mm-hmm.
and it was like definitely precursor to All Else Failed, but it was so awesome.
Yeah.
So we exchanged numbers, Luke and I, and then I kept in touch with him, and I think I called, or he called me, or I called him. It's like, "Oh, when are you playing again?" And he was like, "Oh, we have a new band. It's called All Else Failed." I was like, "Okay, cool." And I went. I don't remember where that show was. It was in Upper Darby somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when I met Pat, like for real Pat. Well,
Yeah.
but that's when I really met him.
Yeah.
Uh, and I think like he had a Phillies hat on. And so like I had like a Phillies shirt. Or so I don't know. I don't know. I don't even remember. It was so long ago. But yeah, that's how I met those guys, and just became number one fan, and would go wherever they were playing. And then like at fast forward to then I had a band, Last Place, and Last Place started playing shows with All Is Failed, and that was super cool. That like I'm playing, and I'm also playing with my friends, but I'm also playing with my friends are in this band that I genuinely fucking love.
Yes.
Um, and yeah, that was it. It was all very organic. It was very just as only 1994 or 95 could do. It was just like, do you want to see my band? Okay, cool.
Yeah.
That was it.
That's the only thing to do. I mean, come
Yeah,
on.
no, there was nothing. There was.
Yeah.
I would go to the city and like look for flyers
Yeah.
to see if there were shows happening anywhere, and collect flyers and stuff.
That was the best. Like on payday, driving down to South Street, going to
Oh,
Corrupted Image and Repo, and what was the metal one? Rock and Roll Plus.
Rock and
Oh,
Roll
Yeah,
Plus.
plus, yeah.
Yep.
grabbing all the
Rockwell Plus.
flyers.
My
Yeah.
my favorite was always Noise Pollution, which was like on Fourth Street.
Mm-hmm.
It was kind of like the out of the way one, but that dude had every like hardcore band demo from like '90 up until like whatever year you were in. So like that's where I bought the first VOD demo. I bought a Biohazard demo there. So it was cool because he was just like an obvious just burnout stoner dude that loved music, and it was like his record store was more just an excuse for him to hang out than it was like a record store.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There was that. Do you guys remember that place? It wasn't on South, but it was right off. It was called the Wooden Shoe, I think.
Yeah,
Yeah.
So
totally.
I got super into like grind and crust in high school, and Anthony and I used to go in there, and I remember a couple times going in there and being like, "Does anybody fucking work here?" Like it was empty. Like first of all, you would go in and like be like, "All right," like listening to shit, finding stuff, like making piles of things. Like, okay, I'm gonna go up and check out, and then like literally being like, "There's no one here." Like
Yeah,
because apparently like the whole thing is a lot of it was done through volunteer. Like a lot of
yep.
people were kind of like, so I remember being like, who do we pay? And we just left a stack of records the one time because we were like, okay, there's nobody here to check us out. Like what the fuck? We're not gonna say that just like walk off with it. I don't even know how much there was no price tags on anything. Like we didn't know how anything cost. Like
It was
but
the best.
it was just like, and then when you would get somebody behind the counter, you'd be like, all right, I remember we bought we were like we're gonna split this record because we didn't have any money with us, but we had like
Right.
enough to be able to buy one LP. It was a band called Suppression and another band called Cripple Bastards. They had done a split LP.
Yeah.
We're like, let's fucking. I was like, we're buying this. So we fucking go up to the counter and we're like, how much? And she kind of like glared at us for a second. She's like, you guys don't want any literature? And we're like, I'm sorry. Like, and she's like, do you
What
guys want some?
literature?
She's like, we have like a whole section over there with books. So like Anthony and I kind of like sheepishly were like, okay, we'll walk over here and like look at stuff. And then we walk back over and we're like, yeah, we'll just take this. And we bought like this, like we got like, it was like it was essentially amounted to a pamphlet that somebody had made. We're like, we'll take this. And she was like, and she kind of like glared at us for a second. And then she was like, okay, that's $9. And we kind of looked at each other like, she just made that up. She fucking had no clue what anything costs. Like she was just like, yeah, that's $9. I was like, what the fuck? We could have just been like, all right, we have $8 between the two of it. Like she didn't really like it was very obvious they didn't care how much anything cost.
That was the best.
I remember hearing stories about that place. Like my friend was like, "Oh, can you see if they have this book here?" And I think she said like, "Oh, they're like kind of mean there," or like meaning the staff or something like that. I was like, "Oh, great. That sounds like a fun experience."
Yeah.
I bought a Nausea record there. That
Oh,
was
nice.
that was like, of course, that's where I bought a Nausea record. But
Exactly. I was gonna say that's where you bought. That's where if you wanted to go buy things like Ass Suck or if you wanted to buy God, what was the other one? Agents of Satan. Like there was
Yep.
stuff that we would buy there, and I'm like, this is the only fucking place that you could buy this. But it literally was like one of those places for anybody that hasn't ever been there or was I don't even know if it's still open. Imagine like a super like punk rock version of like Portlandia. Like it's that kind of like it's almost so it was so like outlandish. It was borderline cartoonish. Like when you were in there, you're like, is like you half kind of want to be like, are there cameras in here? Is someone fucking is this fucking candid camera? Like, is this fucking really happening? Like, does the lady behind the counter like have a shaved head with like one stripe of green in it? What the fuck is going on right now? Like, but keep in mind, like Anthony and I were like two private school kids from fucking Bucks County that were like, oh, we're gonna go down to South Street and buy records, and like we were everything those people hated. Like we literally embodied like I remember walking in there being like, ugh, it was palpable. Like that woman was just like, fuck these kids. Like but they keep the lights on. So fuck them.
Yep.
So the first Backwoods Payback record was out in 2007.
2007. Yep.
And then we got started with legendary Westchester / Philadelphia area band Crash of 64 around 2008. And now that was Backwoods Payback like on a hiatus or something when we were doing that or like
So when we were doing that, it wasn't on a high. Well, I guess sort of it was. So our drummer at the time was guitar tech, drum tech for CKY,
Mhm.
and I think he was on tour for like a majority of a year,
Mhm.
and that's probably when Crash of 64 started.
Yeah, so
Because
I
actually,
remember starting that band. There was like a lot of lineup shifting in the beginning, and we tried out three singers, Mike, one of which you were, and you were the only person who actually sang during the tryout. Like everyone else,
really?
yeah, like everyone else would just kind of show up and we'd play, and they'd be like, like no one else actually sang. So
What did
you
they do?
they just
Just
kind of
nothing?
stood there. Yeah, it was weird.
Weird.
Yeah,
So
so I get
was that at the it was like a rehearsal studio
yeah in
right
Manayunk or
there? Yeah,
something.
yeah.
Yeah. So and Pat was kind of like the decision maker about things, and I'm glad because we ended up with like the best people, and we finally settled on the lineup of myself and you and Paul and
Hmm.
Pat. Remember, we were a four piece at first
Yeah,
without a bass player.
yeah. Again, no bass player.
Yeah. See, bass players are just you just don't need them. No, I'm just kidding.
I
No,
don't know.
no. I just wanted to see how you'd react to that statement, given your band situation.
Right. No, no, yeah, man, that was weird. If I remember right, I wasn't gonna go. I think
Yeah,
Pat was like, "Come, yo, come through," as only P Shan can. Yo, come through. I want you to hear this, or like help me out. It was done under the guise of like, yo, come do me a favor, or like
yeah,
come help me out, or come, I don't know, whatever. Come drink a beer or something.
yeah,
And but no, then I heard what you guys were doing. And I was like, wow, it's cool. And yeah, it like it spoke to me. So
yeah. That was just like the ultimate band to be in at that time because I was obsessed with like post hardcore and Quicksand and Handsome and all those type of bands. Helmet.
mhm.
And that's probably my favorite band I've ever been in. Just the people in it and the good times and all that stuff, and it just really lined up with everything I was trying to do. And it was also really important to me because that's the first band I played guitar in. And like you mentioned earlier, I just really wanted to be involved in the songwriting process and
Yeah,
just and it was like a step up for me. I'm like, I'm in a band, it sounds like how I want it to sound, because I was in a band before that and it was more of like a your typical rock band, but I was always
mm,
more on like the hardcore post-hardcore side of things. And I'm playing guitar, I'm writing songs, and it was just, I'm like, this is it. Oh, and on top of that, I'm playing with Pat. Like when the before the band started, I was like, hey man, I don't know if I'll be able to be in a band with you because like you're really good and I'm not. Like,
so
like,
I listened to his episode. Well, I listened to
yeah,
all the episodes, but when I heard that one, that was the first time that I had heard like how that band really started. Because I kind of knew the like I thought that you guys just knew each other and were like, hey man, let's do this band. I didn't realize that it was like I know of you or I know from you, and then it came together. So that was super cool. And
wow.
yeah, that was wild. It made me appreciate it even more, you
Yeah,
know?
I didn't know Paul or Pat really at all. I tried out for an early version of what became Murder Texas, like
Yeah.
a year prior maybe, but I didn't know them at all.
So crazy.
I know. So how tell me your experience with that band. How do you look back on it?
Um I know that it was a little it was super refreshing for me to sing and not have a guitar on me.
Yeah.
Um, but it was also I had at that point been singing and playing the guitar for so long that I felt awkward. I didn't know what to do with myself, which was
Yeah.
weird because for years and years and years before that, I never had an instrument on me, so I just did whatever. And I know it, I was like painfully aware of my body, like
Yeah, that's got
because
to be so weird.
it was super weird. And but it was cool. It was really exciting to write uh with other people. Because for a majority of the Backwoods stuff, it's me like writing everything, and
That's
then
a lot of pressure too to write
and then
to.
yeah, and it's hard. It's good to it's hard to not fall into the same traps. It's hard to not like, well, I really like this, so I'm just going to go back to that. Like, I like this change, so I do that. Or I like the way that this feels, so I continually rely on it. And it was exciting for me to have you guys writing these songs that I had really nothing to do with musically, and then kind of like putting myself into it. So it broke me out of a lot of fallbacks that I had
Yeah,
lyrically or melody wise, and it was. I look back. I look at that band very fondly. I think I grew a lot as a songwriter from playing with you guys for
me
sure.
too. Because that was like I wrote one song for my previous band, but that was where I really started developing songwriting, and it just pushed me further in the direction of being able to front a band myself. Because I started playing guitar in like 2001 or 2002. I
Hmm.
didn't try to sing and play myself until like I don't know 14 years later or something. So it took me a really long time
Wow. Yeah.
to get up that confidence.
So, what was the first song that you wrote in that band? What was the first? Because you had songs before I showed up.
Yeah, there's
I think I walked in to month,
yes,
right?
there was two or three songs we wrote that did not that just, they didn't make the cut.
Yeah.
The first song I wrote was the second track on the EP. No Easy Outs, I think it is.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was the first one. The first one that was recorded anyway.
That was recorded. Okay.
Yeah.
Did you have that riff for month?
No, that was Pat. And when we practiced in my basement in my Philly house, I'll never forget him coming to practice with that riff. And I was like, what the fuck is this? Like, and because the timing is so weird,
It was so weird.
it took me a while to figure it out. And then once we got it down, and that is one of my favorite songs I've ever been a part of writing. And to this day, that's like my dad's favorite song of like anything I've ever done. He would play that thing like nonstop.
That's so cool.
Yeah, so that's a win there. Crash of 64 just kind of like fizzled out from one day to the next. We were starting to record a new EP, and I know I was really unraveling at that point because
Hmm.
there was this relationship I was in that I was just grasping onto, and I was trying to hold myself together as far as like drinking and all that stuff goes, and not really succeeding, and everything was just kind of unraveling for me. And then all of a sudden the band was just done. It was like there was no conversation, there was no like I think I just texted Pat. I'm like, "Are we practicing?" And then I don't even know what happened. Like what happened from your end?
Uh, I'm in the same boat, man. I know that I was. So you guys tracked the first round for that second EP at the Creep House,
Yeah.
and so I know that you guys went and tracked the first tracks of it, and I wasn't there because Backwoods was out somewhere.
Oh,
I remember that. And then I came home, and I think I was actually on tour because I came home and asked Pat how everything went, and he was like, "Good, good." And then he played. I think he played them for me. I've never actually, I've only ever heard that stuff once, and he played it for me, and I remember thinking like, "Man, it's really fast."
yeah.
Like it's a lot faster than what we were doing. But
Yeah.
okay, cool, And I was like, okay, awesome. Well, should I talk to Eric about like when to go and what to do? And he was like, yeah, like we're gonna, we'll figure it out. And that was it. That was literally it. And then it was like, okay.
Yeah.
And then we never spoke of it again. So
That's
I,
weird, right?
it's super weird. It's super weird. But I'm not one or to talk because I have records like sitting at a studio right now. Like I have two records sitting in a studio that I'm like, oh, I'm over that. I don't want to do that anymore.
Really?
So yeah, so I get it when it's done, and maybe it was done for Pat and it wasn't done for us, or maybe it was done for Paul, or whatever it was. It seemed like it was done, and so I just went, okay, I'll I'll keep moving, you know. But
Yeah. And that
I
was that was like the beginning of the end for me because like things, I was just like, man, this relationship didn't work out, this band didn't work out, and I was trying to get another band started and that didn't exactly work out, and it was a tough time, but I definitely look back. Oh, one of my favorite memories is we we came to your house. Your house is like a magic wonderland. It's like deep in the woods. There's like a creek behind it. It's just fucking awesome. And we
yeah,
showed up we showed up for practice, and we go inside and there's a note with two like Roman candles, and it says, "Yo, we're in the creek. Send up fireworks to let us know when you're here."
I remember that.
That was amazing. But here's what I'm proposing.
Okay,
I think eventually we those new songs we wrote were good. I think
do
eventually
you have
we
them?
yeah, I'm going to
Yeah,
I've been
please
meaning
send
to
them to me.
Oh, absolutely. I've
All
been
right,
meaning to
I've
send them
literally
to
heard them in a car once.
Oh, yeah.
That was it.
Dude, I got to get them to you. I'm going to send them to you and Pat, and I think eventually we see what's up. Maybe we get together and play and see if it's something we want to entertain. Just to like not as like a full-time band because I don't think any of us have time for that, but plus I live up here. But
Mhm.
just play a couple shows
Hey
and
man,
record those songs.
Eric Larson, the drummer of Backwoods Payback, lives in Richmond, Virginia. So
Oh, really?
there's no such thing as like border restraints. You know, you can make it just like we said before. If you want to do it, you just got to do it. That's it.
That's right. That's right. We're going to have to
No, I would love
entertain.
to do that, man.
That would be cool. And this question is for my own personal entertainment. Was I scary out of control back in that
No,
time, or was I
I
like just normal? Like,
I
oh,
I heard you ask Pat that.
yeah,
And I was like, no. Like I answered the question for when you asked that. So I'll answer you now. No, not at all.
okay,
Not at all.
that
You're
that's
just
good.
a dude.
Okay,
I never thought you were out of control. I never thought you were wilding. I thought you were a dude playing
uh,
music, having fun, drinking
okay,
beers.
that's good to hear. So that means that I'm allowed to take it up a notch and get more out of control, right?
Oh yeah, definitely,
No,
definitely.
I'm just kidding.
I think you reached like level 4. You have like another 6 levels of like out of,
Yes, yes, it certainly grew over the years. So moving ahead, Crash
uh-huh.
of '64 is done. We're still doing Backwoods Payback. How did you
Right.
get started with your solo touring?
Um that was I was writing songs that didn't really fit in with Backwoods. They were, all acoustic sounding. And like Backwoods will put acoustic songs on records, but
Mm-hmm.
these definitely were going in a direction that like wasn't, we weren't going to go play like a stoner doom fest and I was going to have an acoustic guitar and do the stuff.
Right.
So I just started slowly tracking them and not really knowing what to do with it. And we had like a couple months that Backwoods wasn't really going to do anything, and I just thought, well, I guess I'll try this. And so I tried one solo show in Westchester, and I thought it went horribly.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought I'm never going to do that again. And then I was asked to go play this little like songwriters, like a songwriter in the round thing, like three
Yeah.
three people sitting on a stage at the same time. And it was with two people that I really admire for their songwriting and just as people in general. And I was like, why do you want me to do that? Like that. They were like, oh, well, we saw your solo show and thought it would be awesome.
Yeah.
Which then also made me think, all right, so I thought the worst thing that I ever did in the world, somebody else thought, hey man, this guy should do this, which helped break me out of another, I go back and forth about like crisis of confidence in my life. especially like music wise. But um, which I think everybody does. I think if you don't, then you're full of shit. You know.
Absolutely. And I played, you asked me to play that solo acoustic gig. I think it
Hmm.
was at Hank's Saloon in Brooklyn a while
Yeah.
ago. And that was the very first time I've ever tried to sing and play guitar like in front of people, and it was fucking terrifying. And I was not happy with it at all, because it was just, same as you. It was
Yeah.
my first time doing it, and what I didn't realize is playing acoustic and singing is a whole separate skill set from playing with a full band. There's like a
Totally.
whole different way to do it, the whole different way to play. It's like its own thing. But I'm glad I did it, because you got to get past the first one to
Hmm.
continue.
I'm glad you did it too, and that's
Yeah,
and you learn from it. Just like you said, there's a whole different way to approach doing it than it is with just turn your distortion box on and go for it. And
exactly.
which is great as well. But so yeah, so I recorded a bunch of those songs, and I did that solo show. I hated it. I ended up doing that songwriters in the round thing, and then I felt myself like, oh, okay. It was pretty much exactly what you just said. Like, oh, I learned. Oh, I can just do. I can ease up. I can like let this stuff happen, and I don't have to attack this thing like I do with everything else.
Hmm.
And and I was like, I could probably do more of these, and so I booked like a show in Delaware, and I liked that, and I did one in Maryland, and I liked that, and it was pretty much exactly like Backwoods 10 years before that. It was like, well, let me see if I can do three of them in a row. All
Yeah,
right, let me see if I can do seven of them. All right, let me see if I can do 10 of them, and just keep broadening that circle.
that's awesome. And is that how MRC and the Souvenirs came about? Was it like an extension of the solo act?
Totally, it was. I wanted to be able to do. I wanted to make music with people that I admired and that I love, um, but I didn't want to call it a band.
Hmm.
So I just thought, and the Souvenirs was that came from a friend. Actually, oddly enough, the same friend that gave me the Hate to Say It CD said that he had a dream that we were in a band called the Souvenirs,
Wow.
and I remembered that like years later, and I was like, well, I'll call it Souvenirs, and that way it's like I get to pick these people and these times in my life and from their life, and we all get together. But if person B isn't there today, it's still it's not missing anything from the band. So the Souvenirs are like a constantly evolving, revolving lineup of people, and it's had everybody from essentially All Else Failed and Crash of '64
Hmm.
as like the band to people from like Heavy Temple in Delaware to people from the Boyles and like Duffy's Cut and in Philly, and it's cool. It's cool to see all these different people from different genres and kind of walks of life all get together in one room and make this music, and it's fun.
I love that. That's the approach I'm taking with my band. Like, my band put out an EP a couple years ago, and then it quickly dissolved. And I kept trying to get it back together, but never could. So I'm never going to say that it's done. I would like to do it again
Hmm.
with other people. If I collaborate with one other person and put out a song, it's still the Basement Year. If I manage to do this band with Tommy and whoever else, like we're planning on doing, it's still the Basement Year. It's just going to be with
It's you.
who?
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
it's going to be.
Yeah.
It's going to be with me and whoever I'm playing with, and our contributions to the thing. And so it used to really burned me up that it wasn't happening the way I wanted to. But now I'm just like, hey, when it happens, it happens. It's never
Totally.
done.
I think
Yeah.
we all get hung up on the idea of things
Yeah.
or the idea of how we hope things or how we want things to be instead of just realizing how cool they can be.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's awesome, that like the dream thing, because my favorite song that I wrote with the Basement Year, the song title came to me in a dream. Like, someone said this phrase to me in the dream, and I was like, there you go, song
That's
title.
awesome. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
I love when shit happens like that.
Hell yeah.
Wow, so you're in one of probably my favorite live band of any band, and Philadelphia mainstays and classics, All Else Failed.
Yeah.
So let's talk about how that came about.
It's a mind fuck still.
Now, first let
For
me
me.
say, that has to be a dream come true, because like, holy shit, to be a part of that powerhouse, like
It is.
live and everything else, it just must be fucking crazy awesome.
It's incredible.
Yeah,
It's like, I think I said it before, but like I got to join my favorite band.
yeah,
That's
Yeah,
that's the shit
that's
that like
incredible.
you're 13 years old and you're like, man, and then the guitar player couldn't do it anymore, so they were like, we need somebody, and then I got up there and did it. Like,
yeah.
no, but it was literally like, we need somebody. Can you push these buttons and yell? I was like, yes.
Of course.
I've waited my entire life for this.
That's awesome.
But it's cool, man. It's amazing. I love those guys. I love their band. Um, it's really neat to see how the chocolate's made,
Yeah,
which is cool too. And it's also awesome to know that like all those years that I spent, like, man, they must be. And like I knew them, and I've been friends with everybody, but when you see them play, it's like they're not your friends anymore. They take on this other life,
yes, because
you
when
know?
when I'm at a show and I'm watching you guys, it's like, it's not like, oh, there's Mike and there's Pat and there's Steve. It's like, it just becomes this other thing, and it's like,
Totally.
oh, we're in the shit now. Like, this is
Yeah.
happening. Yeah.
So going for that was like perfectly stated.
Oh,
We are in the shit right now.
Like
But
when
to
you're up there and you press the button, like for that opening sample, I mean, just walking down the street listening to All's Failed, like I
mhm,
want to start like doing kick flips off buildings and knocking into people. So if you're up there pushing the button, getting it started, it must be like an otherworldly experience.
it totally is, man. It's super cathartic. Uh, it's really it's it's intimidating still,
Yeah,
um, but in a good way. You know,
yeah,
like I want to be the best version of me when I'm there,
yeah.
because they deserve nothing less than that, and they've given me so much more than the best version of themselves.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to be like the weak link.
Yeah,
And I think that's a super important part of that band too, is that they push each other in the best possible way. Like, oh, you wrote this really cool thing. Awesome. I'm gonna play it even better. Okay. Oh, you wrote this like beautiful line. Great. I'm going to sing it harder than you ever imagined. And it's
yeah,
like it's really awesome. Like I said, to see how the chocolate's made, to see like, fuck. So I have to push that button. And it sounds silly saying like I have to push that button the best that I can, but like I have to channel every part of that and make sure that like I'm not standing there doing something.
yeah.
I have to be an integral cog in that machine, and it's really exciting.
No, absolutely. And here's a technical question. Do you find it hard to like keep up with the screaming vocals as time goes on? Well, I used to smoke and vape a lot, so I
Mhm.
when I was doing that, I would find that after I screamed along to like half a song, I'd be wiped out and I'd have to take a break. But now that I'm not doing that anymore, I find I can keep it up a little bit. So how do you keep up with it? Are you just able to do it through practice, or do
I
you have like a
Yeah,
routine or?
I think it's really practice. I think I've been singing or screaming or whatever you want to call it for so long that it's second nature. I think
Ah,
it's a muscle. It's like anything.
yeah.
But like I warm up. I do some really just loosen loosen up your neck. You
Mm-hmm.
know, get your vocal cords feeling all right. Get your muscles going okay. And I think that helps a lot. I didn't do that for years. I started doing that probably 10 years ago,
Mm-hmm.
and it helped immensely. I don't lose my voice. I can do 25 shows in a row and just be fine. I know that Luke struggled for a little while with because that, I mean, that dude is like on 100 at all points in that set.
Oh
So
yeah.
I know that he was struggling, not struggling, but he was nervous about losing his voice because he didn't want to, he didn't want to be out. And I showed him some warm up stuff, and like we do our warm ups together, and it's crazy. I mean, it's crazy to say, like, you can see it and you can hear it between when he didn't do that stuff and when he does it now. And like
Mm-hmm.
we did 11 shows in a row in Europe, and I know that he was nervous about it because that's the most that he's done in a row in years. And he sounded stronger on the 11th show than he did on the first show.
Wow.
And it's just like, it's like muscle memory. It's a thing. You just train it and you work on it and you take care of it. And it's good. I don't, knock on wood. I'm still good, man.
That's
Been doing
great.
this for a long time. I still
Y-
feel good.
Yeah. So let's talk about that European tour because the videos I saw, those crowds looked gigantic. Like, I mean, geez, how was it to play those shows?
It was awesome.
Yeah.
It was so cool. And like Voices Fire took such good care of us. And
Yeah.
I can't love those dudes more. But
Yeah.
it was awesome to play those shows. And in a selfish way, it was awesome to finally see my favorite band playing those shows.
Oh,
You know,
yeah.
like
Yeah.
Yeah.
like I'm still able to. I'm the new guy who's been in the band for like 8 years or whatever, but I'm still able to say like, you guys deserve this, and I've wanted this for you for so long, and now I get
Yes.
to see you doing it, and I also get to do it with you. So
Yeah.
it was awesome, man. And the crowds were super receptive, and like, you know, I think people didn't really know what to expect
Yeah.
because Voices Fire takes out really cool bands. They take out different genre bands. And I think that we were the nod to like, this is where we came from, man. Like, at our heart, we are all hardcore kids. And
Oh, yeah.
so we didn't forget, and neither did these dudes. And
Was
it was super cool.
was there ever a crowd who like really lost their mind to you guys, kind of like how it is in Philly or the Northeast or anything like that?
There were two shows, and I'll, I know one of them was at a place called Skaters Palace. I
Hmm.
don't remember what city it was in, but there were people that knew Route One,
Real
and
shit.
yeah, and like knew it to the point that like they were freaking out the way that Philly freaks out, and I like took the mic and like jumped down and like gave this dude the mic, and he sang.
I
Like,
love that.
he
I
sang
love that.
the end of
Yeah.
Route One, and it was incredible. It was so awesome to see that some dude in Germany like losing his mind.
And that's
Um,
like the dream situation that I always dream of at every hardcore show. Like, they're like, hey, we need some help, and they pass the mic down, and then like we're
totally.
part of the show. Like, that's
That's
fucking awesome.
I think like that's as big a part of me being in that band as like anything is. I got to join my favorite band, so you to get I want you to feel the way that I feel every time.
Yeah.
So, that's the best.
I love that. And yeah, just seeing the size of those shows. I
They
mean,
were
seeing
crazy.
you become a part of the band a while ago, and then just seeing all you guys overseas playing those gigantic shows, I was just like, fuck yes, this is it. Awesome.
It was awesome, man. It was super awesome. Those were some of the biggest crowds I ever played in front of. It was
Yeah,
wild. They were like 3,000 seat venues. They were sold out. Every date on that tour was sold out.
that's incredible. That's incredible.
Yeah.
So Mike, what when we're not playing 3,000 capacity shows and doing national tours and doing solo tours and everything else, what do you enjoy doing in your spare time? Now I know you're a huge Phillies fan. We've got
Hmm.
that, right?
Yep. Yep. I'm a big Phillies fan. I'm a huge wrestling fan.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but like, I don't know. I just like hanging out. I don't really. It doesn't take much to like make me happy. You know, I just lately I like just walking. So you kind of alluded to it. We have like this place out here, you know, and it's like I think Jess and I really worked hard to make it feel the way it made me so happy when you said that you felt it when you came here.
Yeah.
That like we that's what we want to live in. We want to be surrounded by like creativity and that feeling of like, you know, that palpable magic, you know?
Yeah.
So I love being here. I love walking around the property. I love mowing. I love watering all the beds, and it's cool, man. I don't really do much. When I'm home, I'm just home. I think because I'm gone a lot now.
Hmm.
So, uh, especially the last couple months, it sucks because it puts so many things on hold, but it's also cool that like if I'm going to be put on hold, I'm in my favorite place.
Oh yeah.
You know,
It's like a real life version of the Shire or something. It's fucking
totally,
awesome. Yeah.
totally.
So what do we have coming up now? I guess future tours and shows and all that stuff are still up in the air, right?
Yeah,
But
I'm
do we
not.
have any releases or anything that are pending or anything like that?
Um, so I have a solo record that will probably see the light of day at the end of the year.
Mm-hmm.
I've been working on it for a year, and it's definitely like the biggest undertaking I've done solo wise. It has
Mm.
tons of players and tons of instruments, and it's very big. It's very much like that '70s Harvest, Graham Parsons, like the stuff that I grew up, my mom was listening to,
Yeah.
um, like that really kind of neat folky country, but it's not. It's so hard to describe. I don't know. So that's been taking up a lot of my time right now. Backwoods is like I don't know, man. You know, our drummer lives in Richmond. He's also in Avail. He's a founding member of the band Avail.
Ah.
And Avail did uh, finally reunion shows, which were amazing last year. And I
Yeah.
know, and I know that they have a couple things that were scheduled this year. I don't know if they're all going to happen or not, but um, so that kind of contributes to Backwoods being in a little bit of a holding pattern. And then I'm working for Amigo the Devil a lot. Whenever that touring cycle can start back up again, I'll be on the road with that. And I don't know. I feel like I have a lot of irons in the fire, but none of them are really ready for anything yet. It's hard to think about what I'm even going to do next week, much less like I don't want to plan a tour for September and then realize that it can't be done. So
Exactly.
it's hard.
Exactly. We don't know what the hell's going to happen.
No, man.
Well, like I mentioned earlier, my life hasn't changed too much as a result of this thing. So we have the podcast, Tommy and I, that we can continue doing. There's so many good video games out right now. I can't even keep up.
Oh
So
man, we have a
that
Switch,
yeah
and we started. I looked up co-op games because we like to play like games like puzzle games together, and we've
yeah
been playing this game called Death Squared. It's so good. It's
oh
like it's like it sounds like Paul Rudd is just making fun of you the entire time. It's awesome. It's awesome. I can't describe it any more than that. It's puzzles, and he's like, "What's wrong with you? Why are you doing this?" Right? It's great.
That's beautiful. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I'm just taking it day by day. That's all you can do, right?
Yeah.
All
So,
right.
Tommy, what's going on with the school year? Is that
So I teach in New Jersey. So I teach in Trenton. They just announced last week I believe on Tuesday that we will be closed for the remaining of the year.
okay?
That means all of my classes, the way they've been since March 16th is the first day we had online classes. Will continue like that until June 19th. My thing now is that I'm starting to see kind of I don't know how much I can go into a lot of the stuff that
Yeah,
like
yeah, yeah.
so my wife teaches in a local district and she has professional development coming up when the students are out and like towards the end of June.
Hmm.
And the end of June professional development that they've already announced is how to begin your year online.
That's kind of the same thing that everybody that I know out here in the teaching industry is about to start dealing with too. So
Yes. So I'm not concerned. I teach math, so a lot of the math is really nice in that the programs that are set up give you pretty much instant data, so I can look at what the kids get and what the kids don't get,
Mhm.
and then reteach to those understandings either the same day or the next day, which is really, really helpful. But I don't know what it's going to look like for the more in-depth classes, like the things like reading and writing. A lot of it seems to be kind of nebulous, and we haven't really figured out exactly what that looks like. The nice part is that we have a new baby at home, so we've been spending a lot of time just hanging out around the house doing
That's awesome,
projects.
man.
That's good. Yeah.
So I skateboard, and all the skate parks are closed. So I made an early morning trip. It was actually one of the only times I've really been out of the house. I don't have a spleen. I lost it from skating handrails when I was
Well,
16. So my immune system is not great. So if there's anybody
okay.
that's supposed to go out, like, if there's errands that have to be run in the house, my wife typically takes care of them. The one I did do is I got up at like 5 a.m. one day, and I got all prepped up, and I made everybody's breakfast before I left, and I got to Lowe's at 6 o'clock in the morning as they were unlocking the doors, and I bought a bunch of wood, and I built a little bench to skate out in my backyard. So that was like my daughter's day with me. Was we measured out all the wood, we learned how to use a ruler, we learned like
Hell yeah.
safety with like circular saws, and how to make sure that like everything was, measured up correctly, and how everything was shored right. And like, they were like, oh, what does that mean? Like, what are we doing here? Like, and they were just all about it, because at the end of it, we had a really nice bench that they can sit on, and a really nice bench that Daddy can skateboard on. So,
Love it.
And
So-
whenever I hear that Tommy's skating again, I'm always like, dude, don't lose another organ.
Well,
I get worried.
I know it's really it's so funny. Is like I try to explain to people like why, like they're like, why would you go back to it? And I think it's kind of like the same thing that we all experience with hardcore. It's like, how do you not be a part of it? Like,
Yeah.
it's just it's innate. It's something I've done. I was actually having this conversation with my mother like not that long ago. We were talking about I was telling her the story about building the thing with the girls, like, to skateboard on, and she was like, I think about that day, and I'm like, what are you talking about? She goes, we went to a garage sale in Warminster, and I saw a little skateboard on the ground, and I picked it up and I showed it to you, and I spun one of the wheels, and I said, look at this, look at how neat this is. And you said, can I get that? And she goes, and here we are 30 years later, and you're still riding the goddamn things, and you're still getting hurt. And I saw that picture that you posted the other day with the goddamn thing. I swear to God, if your kids, and she starts going off, and it's like, she immediately, like, she loves the fact that it was when I was younger. She loved that it was not, when parents were complaining like, oh, my kid's always inside on the couch and watching TV and playing video games. Like, I was never that kid. I was always outside on my skateboard. I was always outside with my friends. Like, but for me, like, being home like this is a time to, I know a lot of people are like getting stir crazy, and they're getting upset, and they're getting, anxious.
Yeah.
I have found this, and I say this with all honesty, I have found this time very relaxing.
Yeah.
I have found it almost cathartic. Like,
Yeah.
There's been times where, I don't know how to fix a lot of things. I grew up, my father passed away when I was 5. So I didn't really have a lot of male guidance in my house of like how to do stuff.
Right.
So things around my house, I don't know how to do. So I'm very lucky. I have a guy that lives across the street from me that is just kind of like a jack of all trades. Like, he's a mechanic, he's a carpenter, like, he knows how to do a lot of different things. And I've just slowly started to be like, hey man, I broke my washing machine. He's like, what do you mean? I'm like, well, it's like, it's leaking. He'll be like, bro, you can fix that. You know that, right? Like, you can totally figure out what's leaking and buy the part and replace it. you don't have to be a mechanic to do this shit. And I'm like,
Right.
I've always thought like, oh no, you have to hire someone to do this stuff. And it's like, I've learned slowly that a little bit of elbow grease, a good amount of spending time in front of the just like YouTube and
dude.
shit.
Yeah.
Bro, it's fucking like I can't think of all the times when we were growing up and something would break at my house and my mom would be like, well, I gotta call somebody. And it's like, holy shit, you can fix like 90% of the stuff in your house if you just
Totally.
Are you competent at Googling and watching videos?
Yep.
Yeah,
Can you tighten a screw? Yes.
Yeah, dude.
All right.
That's what's great about having the internet is I've gotten by in my job. I've learned like how to clone hard drives. I've learned whole softwares. I've learned so much stuff just like from looking at the internet. It's crazy.
It's such a wealth of information, and we usually don't have the time or the capacity to sit down and really just go like, oh, let me figure out how this works. But now that we've had this time on our hands, I've seen people go like into this like, oh, well, you could spend a ton of time on Facebook or Instagram, or you could fucking learn something. You could really push yourself. Man. You could push yourself. My next new project I have coming up, and I'll update you. I'm sure you guys are all fucking chomping at the bit to know. But I'm going to replace the garage door at my house.
Ooh.
So the only thing that's really scary about that is when I look at the size of the springs on it, I go, those could do some damage. Like they look like they could fuck you up. So I definitely am going to be cautious with it. I'm going to take my time step by step, but for sure.
Wear the plastic goggles, dude. Wear the plastic goggles.
I got all kinds of safety equipment. Like that's one of those things that I did work for a little while through college. I was a welder, so I know how to weld basically, and I know how to fix things a little bit. But man, I really am like excited. Like, all right, let's pick a new project and let's start figuring out what do we need, especially with like the fact like you really aren't supposed to be leaving. It definitely has forced me like to be very measured about like when I went to go buy all this stuff for the bench I was building. Like I knew exactly what I had a list like of. Okay, I need this many 2x4s. I need this many 2x6s. I need this length of Trex. I need this I need these style of screws, and I need them at this length. This is approximately how many. Like, so the planning process for me was like 2 hours of me sitting at the kitchen table with my daughters being like, okay, daddy wants it to look like this. Like, how do we shape this out? It was so great because like now I'm watching my daughters just do little stuff around the house and then literally say to each other, like, did you plan this? Or do you know what you should be doing next?
That's awesome.
It's like a life lesson that, like, I hate to say it, but like if my kids were sitting in a kindergarten classroom in public school, like they're not going to learn shit like that. They may pick it up on chance, but like to be able to sit around and explain to them exactly what I'm doing and why I'm doing it. I found this time very, very, very useful and super. It's just been a great bonding time. Like it's been really, really nice.
I'm scared of quarantine ending, quite frankly, because like then there's social obligations and dinners and just a lot of social pressure. So I'm kind of enjoying all of that being taken off the table and just being like, I'm hanging with my girlfriend. I'm hanging with the cats. I'm doing this thing. So it's that's good. That's all good stuff.
Yeah, it's definitely it. I think it has kind of exposed a good chunk of like people to be like, okay, so this is what I need to be doing, or this is what I should be doing, or this is what I could have been doing with your life. And it's very like I've had a couple times where I've seen people's Facebook or Instagram posts and be like, kind of just slowly shaking my head, like, what are you doing with your time? Like, I almost want to read. There's a couple people that I've actually have like reached out to and been like, you okay? Like, is everything all right?
You guys going to get into bread making at all? You going to make some bread?
No.
No, Jess makes bread. It's really good.
Oh, nice. That's good.
I've been taking apart like engines and like motorcycles. Yes. And it was all just like, well, I have this busted up moped. I wonder if I can make it work. All right, cool. Hey, yeah. And then the guy down the street was like, "You want this one?" Yep.
I have a friend of
Brought
mine.
down.
I have a friend of mine that actually did something really similar, but he did this like years ago. He bought a house up in like northern Bucks County, Quakertown area,
Yeah.
and it was on like, I think he has like 15 acres or something like that. But he has this gigantic 3-car garage behind his house that's like almost a quarter mile behind it. And I think it was a neighbor or somebody that was close by said, "Hey, you have all that property, but you have no way to get around it. You should really look into getting a quad." And he was like, "Oh yeah, I guess." The guy was like, "I got one of them old, it's called a mule." And he's like, "What the fuck is that?" It was one of these things that used to drop out of a plane in Vietnam.
Yeah.
Bro, so he fucking literally he went to this guy's house. The guy had it. He goes, "It doesn't run at all. Here's most of the pieces that you need." But my friend has been slowly assembling it and putting it back together, and it runs now. And I was like, "Well, how did you get any of this stuff?" He's like, "Dude, there's a whole online organization of people that just are dedicated to rebuilding this military technology." And he's like, the thing is that they're so easy to work on because they were literally meant to be dropped from planes and be damaged.
Right.
And people were supposed to be able to use locally found things to be able to fucking fix them and kind of rig them up to work. And I was like, "Holy shit, dude." I was like, "This is the best thing." But we literally
Awesome.
spent like an afternoon like watching stuff being like, "Okay, so that's how a carburetor works. All right, so we got to go get that float back and we got to go."
Same.
It was fucking wild, man.
Same.
So
I was like, "What's a carburetor?"
Yeah,
Oh,
exactly.
cool. All right.
I don't even know what it is now.
Well,
You don't
But don't tell me.
don't-
'Cause-
don't
No,
go into-
no, don't tell me. Don't tell me. I don't care. All right, so I didn't want to get Tommy going again.
Well, actually,
Here's the thing.
oh
So
Jesus, yeah.
I did this. I made this. I made this little EP on planes last year. Traveling so much, I took my iPad and it has GarageBand on it,
Mhm.
and I made a synth EP, kind of like my love letter to Depeche Mode and Nine Inch Nails.
Really?
And,
Where
yeah.
can we hear that? I'd be interested in hearing that.
It's on Bandcamp. It's the project is called F for Fake.
Mhm.
And yeah, I like it. It's definitely like a little. It's a love letter. It's a little passion project, but I don't know that I would ever really do anything else with it. But I like the novel idea of it that I made the whole thing on planes, like 30,000 feet in the air.
That
Like
is look at
recorded
this.
it, wrote
That's
it,
awesome.
sang it. Yeah,
See how much this man produces? He's sitting on planes and like conceiving other EPs. I love that.
Jesus, I'm usually
never
asleep on the
stopped.
fucking things.
I did
Oh.
something similar. I made a music video for a song from my EP. All right, I'll plug myself. Folks,
yeah, do it.
Basement Year. The song is Tourists of the Moment. It's on our YouTube channel. And I did the same thing. Like I was flying back and forth to California, Northern California, Southern California, up and down. And I just took a bunch of footage and made a music video for the song.
Awesome.
So, yeah, so that was a fun project. All right, so we're going to check out F for Fake. That's what it was called.
Yep.
Okay. We're going to check out Backwoods Payback. We can find all of their material on Spotify. And
Yep.
my favorite song has always been Day to Day
Yeah.
from Use Magic to Kill Death. That
Yeah,
is just like a wonderful stew of riffs. I love that song. That's the best song.
That is Jess's favorite song as well. That
Yeah.
is, if we are playing a show, that song is going to get played.
Oh, that's good. Don't remove it from the set list.
Never.
And we're going to check out the Michael Rudolph Cummings solo works. Are those now? Is any of that on Spotify or where can we find it?
No, it's all on Spotify. It's all on
Okay,
Spotify,
good.
and iTunes, or Apple Music, and everything. Pretty much
Okay.
everything. I made a conscious effort about 5 years ago to be like, if I did something, I have to, I have to accept the world that we live in and just make it available. And I would rather people hear it than not hear it. So
Exactly.
if there's a platform, I want it to be on the platform.
That's good. You got the Crash of 64 EP up on there.
I
too,
did,
right?
yeah,
Yeah, I figured that was you. So yes, folks, check out the all-time classic 4-song Crash of 64 self-titled EP. It can be found.
Reading Ghost Notes, correct?
Oh
That's
yeah. See, I didn't
yeah,
even remember that it had a
yeah,
name. It's been so long.
yeah.
So that's a good one. We've got MRC and the Souvenirs. We've got the MRC solo works. We've got All Else Failed. All
All
Else
else failed.
Failed. I mean, come on. That body of work is unparalleled.
It is, and there's more to come. So
That is awesome. That's
yeah,
good news. That's so we've got new material coming eventually. Is that the
yeah.
exclusive you're giving us?
I think that I will go ahead and say it without them knowing that I'm saying it. But yes, there is more to come.
Oh, that's awesome news. That's awesome news. Well, Mike, we want to thank you so much for being on the show.
Dude, I want to thank you for having me. I wasn't sure why anybody would want to talk to me, but it was really fun. And I meant what I said, man. I really enjoy what you guys are doing. It's got a really good vibe and a really good feel. And even when I don't know who it is that you're interviewing or that you're talking, and they're not interviews. Even when I don't know the person that you're talking with, I
Mm-hmm.
come away from it feeling good because it was a really well done, thoughtful conversation, and I think it's fun. I think it's cool. Keep it up.
Thanks, man.
Thank
That
you so
means a
much.
lot. And that's
You,
what someone told me. He's like, "Don't call them interviews. They're,
yeah,
they're not really interviews. It's just." And that's what I want this to be. I want it to be a comforting, fun hangout thing because I do a lot of travel and I like podcasts where it's like a rotating group of characters and it's like having friends with you on the road. Like,
totally, totally.
yeah. And that's what I
That's
perceive
what I
for
love
this.
about it. I listen to it and I feel like I get to eavesdrop on a really cool conversation.
Well, Michael, thank you so much for being on. This was
Hell
awesome,
yeah!
and we'll talk to you soon.
All right,
Mike,
I hope to see you soon.
yeah, Mike, it was
Absolutely.
really nice talking to you. Thank you.
Thank you, man.
All right.
And folks, as a reminder, and I have to remind you, I'm sorry, I'm contractually obligated to do so, but subscribe to us on your podcast medium of choice. Give us ratings, give us feedback, give us likes. Follow us on Instagram and Twitter at the NE Scene. We've got content almost daily on both. Write to us at northeastscene@gmail.com. We want your show videos. We want your ticket stubs. We want your flyers. We want your stories. Get in touch with us. Be a part of this thing. Come with us on the journey and give us show feedback too. Thank you for your contributions to this thing as well. And until next time.